Hi YouTube, Axis and Allies players out there. It's January of 1938 here in the nest. Viper here, coming to you straight down. Don't forget last turn, Japan decided to start war with China. Lots of things happened. Lots of things are going to happen, and we're going to start on that right now with Germany annexing Austria and bringing in some other things. But there's other things that I want to focus on this turn, including our fleets and some other countries that Germany can or will be able to annex here in the near future. So let's get started. Germany, starting out with 20 IPPs, decided they're going to buy one light tank again. They're going to issue that to Spain. 6 to move their battleship up a block, submarine that they put in the placement box because that's where that one automatically goes. And they decided they're going to pick up an artillery. That leaves one IPP left. Germany's going to hang on to that. Combat in Spain. Everything fired at Madrid. This is awesome because if Madrid falls, nationalist Spain has a great grasp on taking that, and then France doesn't have to worry about that, and they can gain that victory point. So we had 2 infantry in Madrid versus what came from Leon Castile, a light tank, an infantry, and a fighter. And then from Asturias, we threw in an infantry and artillery. And from Barcelona, here came a cavalry, and Extremadura, a light tank. Now, the bonus to this is that Madrid had a +1 for city fortification. Also, target selection came on a roll 1 for the infantry if they were able to roll that. However, everything that came around to go attack at Madrid got a -1 because of that mountain territory and that city fortification. Cool thing is that Republican Spain didn't hit a damn thing. It was kind of awesome. But almost, nationalist Spain almost didn't hit anything either. They got 1 hit from their fighter and 1 hit from their cavalry. Now, going to our actual attack board, you can see this right here. We're going to bring this down here. Where we had everything, because of the city fortification in the mountain, it moved everything down a line. So we had things here on a 1, we had things here on a 2, and things here on a 3. And the only thing that was able to hit anything was this fighter that hits at a 6. The fighter doesn't have to worry about that mountain territory, just flies over the top of it and shoots away. So that's what hit. And luckily our cavalry, which came in at a 3 but then jumped down because of that -1, was able to hit also. So that's what took out the 2 infantry that was in Madrid. Germany takes Madrid. Now, other thing I want to focus on here is these rail lines. Just because Germany took Madrid doesn't mean that it's open for that Lend-Lease project. So at the time, we only had these 3 open here, which included this port over here. So when the light tank was sent over to Spain, the only place it could have gone was Asturias, which makes no sense because there's nothing for it to attack, and it would take 2 more turns before it could do anything. Or it would go here, but that's kind of a useless territory. It's just there so that we can take off the rest of Murcia and get that taken care of. So no rail lines, just ports. So that's where we had to put that light tank, so that you guys have a good idea where that went. The plane started off in Leon Castile, and once it was done, it stopped here in Extremadura so that our flanks were covered. And our nationalist Spain has Madrid under its belt. The recruitment roll was successful, so we placed another infantry here in Barcelona. And then Germany decided, when they annexed Austria, it gained them 2 IPP points, and they took the mountaineer from Munich down into Austria and jumped up those 2 infantry to being German troops. It also increases some of the global tension, but just for the Euro-Brits, because everybody else doesn't really care. France is over here. They don't care what Austria is doing. They don't, we're worried about making sure that Belgium is still protected, that Britain is taking care of that non-aggression pact for Belgium, and everything else like that was put into place after the Great War. There's no other movement. And we do have our placement. Our sub that was in our box over here came up here to the Baltics, or to the Baltic Sea, and our artillery went into West Germany. Now, something else I want to focus on here too. Allies players, this is for you. This is like Darth Vader versus Batman. Things are starting to get real over here. Stern to stern, bow to bow. We've got Russian ships, we've got German ships, we've got ships from Finland, we've got ships from Denmark. All of this stuff is right here ready to rock and roll. So that Molotov
Molotov Pact that's going to be coming up here soon is going to have a lot to do with whether or not these ships go to war with each other. So this naval battle may take place. We're not sure yet. We haven't decided. So as we develop this along, we're going to keep an eye on that. And when we get to Japan, I'm going to show you some other stuff that's going to get real down there too with the ships and the fleets. Moving on to Russia, CCP, and Republican Spain. Remember that CCP and KMT have a ceasefire and Russian-Japanese non-aggression pact is going on, which meant Japan closed off the rail lines. There's no rail lines from Lend-Lease to CCP, so they're stuck at 2 IPPs. They're going to keep those for next round because they still got them and they haven't lost their territory yet. Russia bought an infantry to send to Republican Spain and put down in Murcia, and they bought themselves an artillery. Republican Spain still doesn't have the strength to attack back, and CCP is just going to sit tight where it's at because they're going to be needed when Manchuria decides they're going to start heading south on a full force. Russia's going to continue moving everything west because of that concept that Germany's starting to annex countries, and the artillery is going to end up in Leningrad, and then of course the infantry went to Murcia. Now, one of the things about the new rules for the global war is that the Sudetenland, Slovakia, and Austria can be annexed at any time by Germany at the start of the game. But Germany has to keep this in mind, that anytime they try to annex anything that's next to Russian territory, original Russian territory, Russian tension is going to go up, which means their IPPs are going to shoot up. That in mind, later on, they're going to be able to annex Romania also, along with a few others, if that's appeasable to them. As an Axis player, I don't want Russia to get up there any further than they have to be. We don't want to rock the boat any more than what it is. Know that the Allies players' production points, they're kind of down right now. That's given Germany and Japan a little bit of a boost, and Italy, because right now our production is a little bit higher. We want to make sure we keep that as long as we possibly can and choke it out as much as we can. So, moving on to Japan and Manchuria. Japan, 4 IPPs to stage up their cruiser, and then another 2 IPPs to take a dead off the carrier. They decided that this time they're going to get those 2 special naval landing forces, those 2 special Marines that we have specific to Japan. Another thing to keep in mind, this has the same hitting power as an American Marine, so in a technical way it's an elite force to Japan, but to America they're like, we have those guys out of boot camp, whatever. So, Japan is going to attack Nanking. Japan takes in their 4 Marines and their 2 artillery, and the Air Force from Korea, which was 2 fighters and 2 tacticals. Nanking had militia and the +1 for the city fortification. Japan did get that 1 hit on the militia, so the classical history of, as bad as it sounds, the rape of Nanking does take effect. We're not going to go into the details of what actually happened to that. We will say that Japan does go up 2 IPP for that, but they go down an embargo point for America, so that actually leaves them at 17 IPP in their final round. KMT drops to 2, and the Air Force drops back into Hainan. Now, everything we've put in this block is now right here, including all of our units that we've moved from Tokyo. Because everything that was in Tokyo, the 5 infantry, 1 motorized, and 1 artillery, took a transport, they all landed in Hainan. Our light carrier and coastal sub and cruiser that were sitting at Nanking are now in the fleet at Saigon. Now look at this, guys. Allies players, this is for you. Look at the money islands. Look at what you don't have. Look at what Japan is bringing to the table. With that, you have this block here, that's outside of Midway, as is in history, and here's the block that's going into Midway. America's still sitting tight because they're not at war, but that's something you want to keep in mind as well. Japan's moving up the line on the staging process, just like Britain and America is. So, Allies players, focus. We want you guys to make sure you're keeping this in mind. Watch where everything's going. Now, I have played this where I took some of my fleet and I sent it up to Alaska, and my Allies player looked at me and asked me what I was doing, and I said, I'm floating. And then when I put Japan boots in Alaska and the Andalusia Islands, my IPPs went up. So did my production, and so did a victory point until I lost it, but that's besides the point. but America had to respect that. So that's something to keep in mind when you guys are putting those ships out on the water. We'll be back here soon, coming up with the Allies players with the Euro Brits, Pac Brits, and Anzac. If you like it, leave us a comment, tap on that like button, like it, live it, love it, share it. See you later.
Hi guys, welcome back to the nest. We're on the Allies' turns of January 1938. Couple quick things. It's a pretty fast movement, not a lot going on till we get to KMT, but we'll get to that here in a second. We're going to start off with our Euro Brits, Pac Brits, and Anzac. Euro Brits, very simple. They paid 3 IPPs to place their carrier in London over here. They decided to get an infantry, which they placed in South Africa, and then they paid 5 on their debt of their cruiser, and that cruiser will now be able to move against into the next staging process for the next round. They moved their artillery in Rhodesia to Tanganyika. I can't read my own notes. That's awesome. And then their South Africa infantry that they had, they moved up here to Rhodesia. This transport that was sitting here in Spain is now moving down here to the Strait of Gibraltar, along with these a transport that loaded up an artillery from London. And the unloaded transports are still making their way up here to London. It's been taking them a little bit of time to do so. Over here to India, we've got an artillery and a militia off of their 6 IPPs that they bought. They placed the militia over in Bombay, and the artillery went down into Calcutta. And they are still heading eastward towards the Burma Road. In Anzac, we had 4 IPPs this round because of the global tensions that went up. So they bought an artillery and placed it in Sydney, and our transport that was over here in Saudi Arabia area is heading back to Australia because of the tensions that are starting to build up. It decided, you know what, we should probably turn around. Over in France, we have 6 IPPs up here to our ships and our placement yards. We had 1 IPP to pay off the battleship debt and 5 to go on the cruiser debt. That left 3 left, so the battleship will be able to move up a staging round for the next turn. Italy took 4 IPPs off of their battleship. That left them, yep, right there, sorry. That left them with 4 left on that one because it was at 8. So that one should be able to be paid off so it can start moving up the line. And they spent 3 on an infantry that they put in Barcelona. No movement for either France or Italy this turn. And America and KMT. So some things happened here in America and the KMT. First of all, for America, they moved their carrier to placement stage with 4 IPPs. They paid 5 on their cruiser right here, leaving them 1. And then KMT picked up 1 infantry as well. The Burma Road becomes available the next turn, so this is something that we want to think about, and KMT did do so. Now, there was a little bit of battle going on because that was owned by a warlord. Now, if you guys remember last video with the warlords are very neutral, so whoever they attack, they're just going to attack back and they're going to defend their territory. They don't actually go to a specific country or faction or anything. They're very strictly neutral. And in this particular case, KMT attacked the warlord going into Yunnan. So that's something we want to look at here because they had the -1 on their territory for mountains. So all of their infantry, they had 9 infantry that went into this, went down to a 1. And their mountaineers that they had 3 mountaineers that rolled at a 2. The warlords took in 2 infantry and 4 militia against KMT, and their militia was hitting at a 2 and their infantry was hitting at a 4. Now, the cool thing was this took 5 rounds to actually go through. And as Nato and I were rolling our dice against each other, KMT missed 40 different times. It took 5 rounds to take out the 6 members, of the warlord faction, so that they could take Yunnan from them. Warlords took out 2 of the infantry that KMT had. Both rolled, both are in the hospital, both are wounded, so KMT will get those back next round. The cool thing is now KMT has the Burma Road open for the next round, which allows for the Pac Brits to start lend-leasing to KMT, giving them a little bit of fighting power back so that they can go up against Japanese forces. The KMT also went up 1 IPP, which is great because that takes them to 5, and they'll be able to start purchasing some really good artillery units. And so next turn is going to be very interesting to see that lend-leasing starting to go through. So Allies players, that's something you want to think about when you're going through that turn. There was no non-combat move for the KMT because KMT took everything they had and threw it at the Warlords. Yes, they missed 40 times. I'm going to emphasize that again. They missed 40 times. It was very interesting to watch these rolls of the dice. But they have it. It's open. That's a bonus for them. That's going to be a great thing to help them out with this. There was no combat move for the Americans. And the carrier that they had in placement stage went to San Francisco. KMT took their infantry and put it in Sichuan. So that way they still have a little bit more going on right there. Okay guys, so heads up. Next turn is July of 1938. Germany. My lovely little German players, my Axis players, your medium tanks come out next turn. That's something to think about when you start looking at your purchases. But we're a year and a half in advance of everybody else because we also get mechanized infantry. This is awesome because we can start really building up since we're so much higher in our IPPs. Allies players, keep that in mind because your mechanized comes up in 3 more turns after this next turn. So that's one thing that you want to keep in touch with while you're looking at as all these other players are starting to build up their stuff. Global tensions are going to continue to increase. We're going to look at some other things coming up, including our Molotov and Ribbentrop Pact coming in 1939, as well as the rolls of the dice for the US and the Russia turns to come back up on their IPPs. Stay tuned. Like it, live it, love it. If you like what you see, hit that like button below. Give us a comment. We want to see what you see. We're insane, I'm insane, and I love it. See you guys next time. Don't forget to subscribe. Thanks.